Hi, I'm Lorelei. The last time I sat at my mother's dinner table, my sister looked across the roasted chicken and called me worthless. My mother didn't flinch. She just nodded like truth had finally been spoken out loud. And I smiled, swallowed it, and passed the butter. But what happens when the family you love decides you don't belong anymore? Have you ever been quietly erased by the people who were supposed to protect you? Let me know below. I knew I shouldn't have come, but guilt is a strange compass. It always leads you back to the place that broke you. It was late Sunday afternoon in San Diego, and Evelyn's house looked exactly as I remembered. The same ceramic dishes from our childhood, the faint scent of lemon cleaner and overcooked roast, a home clinging to what it used to be. Raina dropped me off at the curb. She didn't park, didn't take off her seatbelt. "You got this," she said, but the way she said it felt more like you shouldn't have to. Inside, Beckett had already blended into the room like wallpaper, pleasant, smiling, perfectly forgettable. Delphine greeted me with her usual too-sweet smile, the kind that feels like it's been sharpened at the corners. Evelyn hugged me too tightly and too briefly. Her apron was spotless, her voice light. "Dinner's almost ready." I offered to help. She said, "It's under control, dear," without turning around. At the table, Delphine sat at the head, naturally. Her voice floated across the dishes as if she were still on a conference call. She updated everyone about Claire's school recital, her new client, her upcoming Women in Leadership panel. No one asked what I'd been up to, and I didn't offer. "So," Delphine said suddenly, with a tilt of her wine glass, "still living the dream, Lorelei. Unemployed and, what was it, inspired." The room laughed, but not in a cruel way, more like they were trained to. I smiled, thin and practiced. "I'm doing what feels right for now." "Must be nice," she said, voice syrupy. "To have a husband bankroll your self-discovery. Sounds like a wellness retreat with health insurance." I didn't look at anyone. I couldn't. Evelyn set down her teacup, folded her napkin slowly. "At least your sister has built something real," she said. Well, you have Beckett." The air didn't change. That was what stunned me. No sharp inhale, no fork dropped, just that same soft clinking of cutlery and the occasional hum of polite agreement. I glanced at Beckett. He looked confused, like someone who'd walked into the wrong theater and couldn't find his seat. It wasn't the words, I thought. It was that no one flinched. I tasted rosemary in my mouth. Too strong. Bitter. My eyes drifted to the glass sliding door beside the table. My reflection looked tired, not from the years but from the proving. Still here, still small. I stood up, quietly, smiling. "I need some air." No one stopped me. That too said more than any word spoken. Outside, the evening had dipped into that soft golden hue California does best. I sat on the front porch, hands in my lap, heart somewhere deeper. I pulled out my phone. Reflex, habit, escape. A new email had arrived. The subject line read, "L. Rhodes Internal HR Report, Flagged Conduct." I didn't open it. Turns out I wasn't the only one she humiliated this week. Midweek came with that same dry warmth that clung to San Diego's late spring afternoons. I had a sweater folded in the front seat, something Evelyn had forgotten last time we met for brunch. It was gray, soft at the edges, and still smelled faintly of her rose-scented detergent. Beckett pulled up the driveway, humming off key. "Want me to come in?" he asked, already reaching for his book instead of the door handle. "I won't be long," I replied. Inside, the house sounded different. I heard music upstairs, light classical piano paired with the occasional thump of a toe shoe hitting wood. Claire's music. "Hi, honey," Evelyn called from the kitchen, not looking up from her slicing board. Her voice was cheerful, almost rushed, like I'd interrupted something. I climbed the stairs instinctively, feet following muscle memory. My hand reached for the doorknob to my old room before I even thought to hesitate. The carpet was gone. In its place, polished wooden floors, a pink ballet bar mounted to the wall, a floor-length mirror where my corkboard once was. No bed, no desk, no posters of galaxies or handwritten quotes. Nothing of me, all of it, gone. I walked in slowly, careful not to disturb the silence. In one corner, Claire's leotard was draped across a chair, a tiny tiara beside it. "Mom?" I called downstairs. She didn't answer, so I found her in the kitchen. "I saw the room," I said, keeping my voice even. "Oh, I gave the space to Claire," she replied, slicing a tomato like it was nothing. "You don't need it, do you?" I stood still. "My journals? My art? Where did you—" "In the garage," she said. "Everything's in a box. Labeled, I think. You can go through it if you want." As if that box somehow contained the years I left in that room. I didn't speak. I just turned and walked out the side door. The garage was stuffy, with dust motes floating through the late sunlight. A half-open cardboard box sat against the far wall. Inside, one bent photo album, a sketchbook with a cracked spine, and a paper I'd taped to my wall when I was 12. In messy red ink it read, "This will be my office someday." I didn't take it. I didn't touch anything. As I stood, I heard Evelyn's voice from the kitchen window, on the phone. Her tone was light. "She barely visits anymore. I think she's just drifting." Back in the hallway, I paused by the living room. That photo. The big one framed above the mantel. I'd always hated how posed it looked, matching red sweaters, white twinkle lights. But something about it made my chest tighten. I walked closer. I wasn't in it. The photo from last Christmas. I remembered standing beside Claire, one hand resting gently on her shoulder. I wore the only red blouse I owned. Now there was just space. A subtle shift in angle. Everyone shifted half a step left, like I'd never been there at all. "Mom?" I asked. She looked up from arranging napkins. "Did you change the Christmas photo?" "Oh, the framing looked better without the clutter," she said. Clutter. That word bounced around inside me until it stuck to everything. Outside, the air tasted like dust. I sat on the porch swing, legs curled underneath me. I didn't cry. I didn't even blink. Grief isn't always loud. Sometimes it's the silence after you've been erased. My phone vibrated. A message from Raina. "They're using your old slogan in the new campaign. Without credit." The text came while I was rinsing my coffee mug. "You might want to check the team call recording." Raina didn't explain further, and she didn't need to. I dried my hands slowly, walked to the couch, and opened my laptop. The sun was bleeding through the blinds in gold strips across the floor. Beckett was in the kitchen, humming as he stirred scrambled eggs. Normalcy playing in the background while something else prepared to unravel. I hit play. There it was. My voice. Only not my voice. My words. Reshaped in Delphine's cadence. The concept we brainstormed together after hours, only 2 weeks ago, when I'd stayed late in the corner booth at Wilhelmina's cafe, scribbling notes while Raina ordered another espresso. The name, the tagline, the entire pitch deck, lifted and presented by Delphine like it had been born from her own breath. "Resurface," she said proudly in the recording, clicking through the slides. The slogan at the end, "We rise softer and stronger." The room in the call erupted in applause. HR even commented, "Powerful direction, Delphine." I didn't stop the recording. I just let it run while I stared at the screen. She didn't even blink. I texted Raina, "Let it be for now." Beckett walked over, plate in hand, smiling like this was just another quiet morning. "I made them fluffy, just how you like." I took the plate, sat it down beside me. Delphine presented our campaign idea, as hers. He blinked. "What?" I told him everything, briefly, simply. His brow furrowed and then he shrugged. "Are you sure she didn't just get there first? Maybe you forgot to share it officially?" The eggs stayed untouched. That night, I lay awake in bed while he slept beside me, breathing evenly, free of the weight pressing down on my chest. I scrolled through old photos, screenshots of design drafts, photos of napkins scribbled with notes, sketches from years ago. Evidence of building something no one ever saw being built. The same phrase kept returning to me. We rise softer and stronger. My line. Now Delphine's closer. I turned off the screen and stared at the ceiling, wondering if I had truly been invisible for so long, or if I'd just stopped believing I could be seen. In the morning, I closed the shared Google folder where we'd kept the campaign drafts, opened a private document, named it Reclamation. "She can keep the applause," I typed. "I'll build the echo." A soft ping nudged me. Calendar reminder, Q2 Town Hall team-wide presentation, led by Delphine. This time, I'll be in the room, even if no one sees me yet. They called it a culture reset meeting, a harmless name for something that felt more like a surgical cut. I stood behind the tinted glass wall of the observation room, watching the staff file into the conference space below me, notebooks open, smiles pulled taut. Delphine stood in front of the room like she belonged there, confident, measured. She always knew how to speak in bullet points, charm disguised as insight. I watched as she clicked to the third slide. The header read, "Ownership and Accountability." "In every organization," she began, "there are people who lift and people who lean. Some carry, others are carried." The room stilled slightly. I've seen it firsthand. Someone who is given everything, a role, a chance, a name, and still they did nothing with it. I didn't need her to say my name. That's the thing about shame. It doesn't need direct address. It finds you through subtext, through glances, through the quiet that falls when everyone pretends they're not looking at where you used to sit. My breath slowed. A pen rested in my hand, cap unscrewed, ink already drying on the corner of the paper I hadn't written on. My fingers curled around it tighter than I realized. I built this floor she's standing on. The applause came, light but obedient. Delphine nodded graciously, as if she hadn't just undressed me in front of people who didn't know they should be watching. I left before it ended. The elevator ride down felt longer than it should have. I stared at my own reflection in the mirrored panel and wondered how someone could be both so visible and so erased at the same time. My phone buzzed. Raina. Dinner. Tonight, just us. The cafe was dim, tucked between a closed yoga studio and a bookstore that smelled like coffee more than the coffee shop itself. She was already seated, cortado in hand, 2 sugars untouched beside her napkin. "I watched that whole thing," she said. I sat down, removing my coat like I was shedding skin. She didn't blink. "When will you stand up?" My eyes didn't meet hers. I traced the ring mark on the table left by her glass. "You can't win battles you're too polite to admit you're part of." "If I speak now," I murmured, "it won't just expose her. It'll expose me too." Raina stirred her drink. "So?" I looked at her then. She wasn't angry. She was tired. Tired of being the only one fighting for something I kept retreating from. Being invisible had protected me once. I knew how to disappear. I'd mastered it. But maybe I'd done it so well they'd started writing over my part of the story. She reached into her bag and slid a flash drive across the table. "Just in case you're ready to start writing it back." I picked it up, cold plastic, light in my hand. I didn't look at her again. The worst kind of betrayal is the one spoken with applause. The first thing I noticed that morning was the missing icon. I wasn't looking for it, just scrolling through my usual routine. News headlines, 2 unread emails, an ad I swear I didn't click on. Then the space where the group chat should have been. Gone. No notifications, no history. I searched for it. Nothing. At first I thought I'd archived it by mistake. I swiped, refreshed, searched again. Delphine, Evelyn, Claire. Still nothing. And then I stopped. Not out of panic, not out of confusion. Just that strange quiet that comes when something you expected finally happens. That felt expected. Last week, Delphine had posted some vaguely smug article in the chat about intentional parenting and how kids need structure more than affection. I replied with a single sentence. Or maybe both matter. She didn't respond. No one did. Not even the usual thumbs up from Beckett. I remembered reading somewhere that digital exclusion can mimic physical abandonment in the brain, that the body doesn't know the difference. I believed it. I called Evelyn, asked how she was doing, commented on the weather, mentioned Claire's piano lesson schedule, just to test the water. "Oh, things are busy," she said. "Claire's rehearsing every day. Delphine's been amazing with her." I didn't mention the group chat. I waited for her to. She didn't. When I finally asked, light and offhand, she paused. "Oh," she said, "maybe it's just a technical thing. You know how these apps are." She changed the subject before I could answer. She didn't want me in the room. They just wanted the illusion of family. That evening, Beckett walked in holding his phone. "Your mom texted," he said. "She asked if I could RSVP for Claire's celebration next weekend." I blinked. "Did she send that to me too?" He scrolled. "I don't think so." We checked. My inbox was empty. No invite, no mention. I sent Evelyn a text. Just checking if you meant to include me too? The reply came 5 minutes later. Claire felt it might be awkward. You haven't been around her much. That line stayed with me longer than it should have. Not because it wasn't true, but because it had become true. Because someone had slowly moved the boundary lines over time, and I'd been too exhausted to redraw them. That night, I opened my journal. They are not trying to hurt me, I wrote. They're just trying to remove the discomfort I cause by existing. And for the first time in months, my hand didn't tremble as I wrote it. My phone lit up. A call from Raina, missed. A voicemail waited. Check the company blog. Delphine published something today. It's going to hit close to home. I didn't panic. I just breathed. Steady, not surprised. The blog was gone. I logged into the back end of the ELU site to check engagement numbers from Friday's post. I had spent the entire week shaping that piece, small truths buried under careful sentences. A mirror held gently to the kind of invisible work no one ever praises. Instead, I found a 404-page. My stomach dipped, fingers moving quickly through the admin logs. There it was, deleted at 6:42 a.m. by Delphine. Her note, off-brand tone. I stared at the words until they blurred. Too much, not enough. This time, nothing at all. That blog wasn't just about invisible labor. It was invisible labor. The kind I'd given to this company, to her, over and over again. Polished decks, clean strategy lines, vision phrased in ways that made other people look good. Delphine most of all. And now, this. I opened the internal forum. Someone had already asked, where did Friday's post go? It was the only one I actually read. Others chimed in. Was that part about legacy building pulled? It was trending on LinkedIn. There were no answers, but they noticed. They noticed it disappeared. That counted for something. Later, I stepped into the break room just as Delphine was pouring cold brew into one of those trendy mason jar tumblers she only ever used for aesthetics. She didn't acknowledge me. I didn't say a word either. We moved around each other like parallel shadows. Quiet, cold, irreconcilable. The silence wasn't tense. It was settled. That night, while Beckett scrolled through rental cabins for a trip I hadn't agreed to take, my phone buzzed. 10:22 p.m. No name, no subject. The email preview read, I just wanted to say. I opened it. I've been following your writing for a while, it began. Even if no one else knows it's yours. I see it, I see you. You changed how I think about work, about women like my mom. It was signed with nothing, no position, no department, just truth. I read it twice, then again. I didn't reply. I copied the message into a document I hadn't opened in weeks, the one labeled Reclamation. At the bottom, I typed, it doesn't matter how many erase me. One voice remembering is enough. My phone lit up again. Raina, a message this time. The board wants to review upcoming public messaging. You should be there. I stared at the screen, then tapped out my reply slowly. This time I won't be invisible. The room buzzed before the meeting even started. You could feel it in the way people shifted in their seats, overly focused on their notebooks, pretending to read old agenda emails. Quarterly planning days had always carried weight, but today it felt heavier. I sat in the back, like I always did. Not officially on the schedule, just listed as observer. It was a title that used to comfort me. It meant no one expected anything. It also meant no one blamed me when things went wrong. Raina sat across the room near the front, her arms folded, expression unreadable. I couldn't tell if she was tired or just done pretending. She didn't look at me. Didn't need to. Delphine took the floor like she owned it. Her heels clicked across the tile in precise rhythm, the sound almost smug. She opened with slides on efficiency initiatives, then pivoted to team alignment. It was her specialty, stringing together empty words with the cadence of command. Then came the moment. And let's be honest, she said, pausing just enough to draw attention. Every team has people who lift and people who lean. Some of us add value, others. She smiled. Just take up space. She didn't look at me, but the pause that followed did. A cough from the junior manager across the table, the sound of a pen being dropped, a chair squeaking slightly as someone adjusted to avoid eye contact. I didn't react. I just lowered my eyes and wrote on the corner of my notepad. Just taking up space. Then again, and again, 3 times. After the meeting, I stepped into the hallway before the applause finished. The sound of clapping felt strange, too close to the rhythm of hands brushing dust off a jacket. Raina followed me, holding a manila envelope. "It's ready," she said. I didn't ask what was inside. I already knew. Formal documentation, witness statements, time-stamped copies of every time she crossed a line. I didn't reach for it. "You don't have to destroy her," Raina added, softer now. "But you also don't have to keep saving her." I nodded, still not touching the envelope. Later, in my office, I placed it beside me like a sleeping dog. Quiet, heavy, familiar. I watched my own reflection in the glass of the window, caught between day and dusk. A memory surfaced. I was 6. Delphine had taken my favorite doll, the one with the uneven stitched eyes, and when I cried, Evelyn had said, "She's older, let her lead." That was the first time I understood what it meant to lose something and be told you were lucky just to be near it. I opened the envelope. Inside, everything I needed. I typed slowly. The subject line read, "Forward, misconduct, pending review." I hovered over the send button. My fingers didn't shake. It didn't feel like revenge. It felt like something I should have done years ago, like stepping into a seat I was never offered, but always mine. 2 hours later, my screen lit up. Noted, will escalate accordingly. Meeting scheduled. I leaned back, the hum of the office fading behind the glass. The seat wasn't given to me. I just decided to sit in it anyway. The file was waiting for me when I opened my inbox that morning. Subject: complaint attachment, staff verbal abuse. From HR. No pleasantries, no context, just the truth, finally shaped into something with a timestamp. I put in my headphones and hit play. Delphine's voice burst through the speakers like glass cracking. "You're lucky to have a job. If I have to carry this team, then I will. I've done more in a week than most of you do in a month." There was a pause, the kind that isn't silence but restraint. Then the faintest sound. Someone swallowing back emotion. A sniffle, the kind you try to muffle with your hand when you're not supposed to cry at work. I paused the file, then restarted it. I needed to hear it again. The irony was hard to ignore. The woman who spoke at panels about inclusive leadership, who signed every email with "warmly," who had spent the past year undermining me in soft tones, had revealed herself. Not through confrontation, but through carelessness. The email chain continued. Someone had forwarded it accidentally. Now the recording had reached the entire mid-level management team. Some replies had already trickled in. "This is deeply disappointing. I'd like to speak with someone in HR. Has anyone checked on Mia?" Delphine hadn't responded. Raina's message came 2 minutes later. "You don't even need to lift a finger now. She gave you the hammer." I stared at the screen, the audio file still pulsing with the blue play bar. I didn't feel satisfaction. Not yet. Just a kind of clarity I hadn't known I was waiting for. I opened a new email. To Evelyn. Subject: something you should hear. I attached the file. Let it load completely. Watch the little paperclip icon turn solid. Then I typed, "I know what you've believed about me. I just want you to know who you believed in." I hit send. I didn't reread it. I didn't wait for a response. I turned off my phone and walked out to the balcony. The sky was somewhere between silver and lavender. I didn't bring a sweater, but the cold didn't bite like I expected it to. Some people announced their wins. Others just stop losing. The next morning, my inbox dinged again. Subject: executive board meeting. Urgent attendance required. I closed the laptop slowly. Let's finish this with grace. The meeting ended without ceremony. No applause, no gasps. Just a final slide, a nod from HR, and a motion to move forward. Delphine was suspended, pending further review, they said, but we all knew. Sometimes the fall doesn't come with noise. Sometimes it's just the absence of someone who always made the most sound. As I walked past the rows of chairs, a few people glanced at me. Not with pity, not with awe, just awareness, like they were seeing me clearly for the first time. Raina caught my eye as I reached the door. She didn't speak, just squeezed my shoulder once. "You didn't just end her reign," she whispered. "You ended your silence." That night, I waited. No call from Evelyn, no message asking what happened, no demand for an explanation, just a short email. Subject, "Hope you're okay." Text, "Heard there's a lot going on. Hope you're okay. Mom." I read it twice. It didn't feel like concern. It didn't feel like judgment either. Just polite distance, the kind you offer a stranger who used to live in your house. I replied, "I'm more than okay. I'm becoming." The next day, the company announced a leadership transition period. The phrase was wrapped in corporate vagueness, but its meaning was loud. Delphine deactivated her Slack account, unfollowed me on every platform. Raina told me she cleared out her office that same afternoon, quiet, fast, without eye contact. Evelyn never asked me about it. She still said, "Your sister," in conversations, as if nothing had happened. As if this wasn't the first time someone in our family had been held accountable. I didn't expect acknowledgement anymore. A few weeks later, I returned to Evelyn's house. Claire's ballet shoes were still on the floor. The photo on the mantel still didn't include me. I stood in front of it for a full minute. Evelyn didn't say a word. I didn't either. Instead, I walked to the garage, opened the same cardboard box that had been sitting there untouched since she told me to move my things. My old sketchbooks were still inside. The spine of one cracked where I used to doodle campaign ideas between math homework. I took one thing, a folded paper, yellowed, soft at the edges. On it, in my 12-year-old handwriting, "Dream big, even when no one is watching." That night, I closed my laptop and printed my resignation from the board. Not because I was leaving, but because I was arriving as something else. I registered my own LLC, consulting, strategy, branding, my name, my terms, my voice. I didn't need a platform anymore. I had a voice that could build one. I packed a small bag, just the essentials, and left a note on Evelyn's table tucked under her favorite ceramic coaster. "Thanks for the dinner. I'm not hungry for approval anymore." I locked the door behind me without making a sound. I was never supposed to be the hero in their story, so I wrote my own. I didn't need an invitation. I stayed because it was mine all along. Sometimes, silence is the loudest decision you'll ever make. I spent years thinking that if I said nothing, I'd keep the peace. But all I really did was give away pieces of myself, one by one, quietly, until there was almost nothing left. The truth is, you don't have to raise your voice to reclaim your power. You just have to stop handing it out like a favor. You don't have to be the loudest in the room, just the one who finally stops leaving. If there's one thing I've learned, it's this. Belonging isn't something people give you. It's something you build for yourself, one quiet boundary at a time. Have you ever felt like the outsider in your own family? What did you do? Or maybe you're still sitting at that table waiting to be seen. Let's talk about it. I'd love to hear your story. Drop a comment below. Tell me where you're watching from or just type 1 if this story reached you in any way. And if this video stayed with you, if it whispered something you needed to hear, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. That way, you won't miss the next time we share a story that just might sound like your own.